Welcome back to the Badass Literature Society, where badasses come together to rate and review novels recommended by you. Hi, I'm Michael.
This is Barbara.
And I'm Lauren.
Today we're going to talk about literary fandoms and the power of passionate readers.
As a disclaimer, we will be talking about the Harry Potter fandom at some points in this episode. We did just want to be clear that we do not support the author or her beliefs, statements, or actions. We are able to separate the works from the author. And for this episode, we are only referring to the written works in the world that she created, the fandom that's kind of associated with that world rather than the author herself.
And with that, we'll jump into our main discussion. So, what do you think defines a literary fandom? Is it simply a group of fans, or is there something more that makes a fandom truly passionate and influential?
I feel like this is a really interesting question, and I'm not really sure how to answer this. Obviously, I'm not a professional. I have no idea what makes a literary fandom, but I do think it starts with a group of fans who are just excited to discuss, I don't know, all things the book, the characters and the themes, the overall plot, all that fun stuff. Like, I think it's just people who get together and don't get sick of just talking about it over and over again, and then you find your little community, and then it grows and grows, and there you go. It's just a common interest that kind of grows with more people interested in talking and putting their 2 cents in.
Yeah, I feel like then it gets momentum, and then the hype is there, especially with social media, and then that grows it even more.
Yeah, I was going to say social media and technology have made it the growth exponential. Because I'm pretty sure you could find any author who's written a series of popular books, some level of popular books. There'll probably be a subreddit for that author. There's probably a Discord server out there somewhere where there's fans discussing that author's works or that specific series. Probably a podcast about that author and their books. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. But I think like Barbara said, I think it does start with a group of fans that are excited about about that author's creation and want to talk about it over and over and deeper and never tire.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest difference between just a group of fans and a fandom is probably just the level of passion / identity in that thing, sort of. Like, people, I feel like in certain fandoms, they focus more on, yes, they do character analysis and stuff like that, but I think the overarching themes and the little Easter eggs that are hidden, and just the level of interest and passion for a fandom versus just you never hear somebody, oh, I like Harry Potter, it's okay. It's either people are I read it was fine, or they're within the fandom, and there's not really a lot in between, in my opinion. Or there's those heathens that just watch the movies.
What are some of the most prominent literary fandoms today? Can you share any personal experiences of being part of a literary fandom? And how did it impact your reading experience and connection to the book? I'm going to let the two of them talk about Harry Potter, so I'll leave that to you.
So then you needed to talk about your own
experiences. I was going to do that, and then you both gave me a dirty look. So, I mean, I think some of the prominent literary fandoms today, obviously that's one of them. The Tolkien verse, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, all of that. Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere is there's a big literary fandom there. Sarah J. Maas's books, there's a big literary fandom there. I mean, there are a lot of.
You forgot Game of Thrones. I'm surprised you didn't.
I did. Yeah, you're right. George R. R. Martin.
I think out of all those that you mentioned, Game of Thrones is bigger than all of them, personally.
See, I think that's tricky though, because I think Game of Thrones is there's a big fandom more so because of the TV series than because of the books. Whereas the other ones I mentioned are literary fandoms originally, and then some of those have spun off into other forms of media.
I think the Game of Thrones fandom started almost with the series and then read the books, and now they're
yeah.
There's definitely don't get me wrong. There's definitely a Song of Ice and Fire fandom that existed before the TV show was even an inkling of an idea at HBO. But I think that fandom exploded with the success of the TV show.
Okay, fair. I didn't think about that.
As far as personal experiences being part of a literary fandom, I think that the biggest thing, I mean, so sharing other people sharing their love of a fandom is what I'm going to share. So obviously, Lord of the Rings is Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, some of my favorite books. I obviously was not alive when those books initially were released and that fandom initially started, but my mom is Lauren and I's mom is a huge Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit fan. And that was one of those fandoms that, like, my mom was super excited to share her love of that with me when I got old enough to enjoy that story. And so I think that's another cool part of fandom, and I think we see that now too, like with Harry Potter. Like, people that are our generation are having kids, and they're excitedly like sharing that love of Harry Potter now with their kids. Yeah, so I mean, I think that the passing of the torch part of fandom is kind of a neat phenomenon. How did it impact my reading experience? That's a good question. I mean, the only fandom that I can say, I guess, so I'm part of Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere fandom. And I guess I'm also, I subscribe or I'm a member of the subreddit for that. And I'm on a Discord server where people talk about it as well. I'm not very active in those places, but I enjoy reading the discourse between other people talking about different theories and stuff like that. And I think that can enhance a book if somebody presents an idea. It's like, oh my God, I never thought about like that being how that might have worked. And then going back and rereading that section of the book, there's all sorts of stuff like that happens.
Yeah, I feel like I did not get into Lord of the Rings and all of that like you did, but prominent literary fandoms, the one that comes to mind for me or that I relate closely with would be Harry Potter, obviously. I feel as if personal experiences being part of it, like, I don't know, I feel like I read them when I was a kid or a teenager or whatever, older elementary, teenage years. They were read to me by my mom. Then I read them. And then I probably didn't read them again until, I don't know, like younger adulthood, just because I just decided I'm going to do a reread. But by then, like, podcasts were a thing, and those weren't a thing when I was in high school. Maybe they were, but like not as many people. They definitely weren't as common. And so then I started asking, like, okay, well, maybe I want to find some podcasts about this. And so I found like the Swish and Flick podcast and other, like, MuggleNet, and I don't know. And even when, I guess, way back when I very first started reading it, like, they had the sort yourself into your house quiz or whatever, that everybody would take. And so that contributes to the fandom. And there was just a bunch of different things that made it cool. But then you meet people online, that in person and online, that are also part of the fandom. And I think that just impacts the reading experience, the connection to the book, like the connection to the world. And it gives a sense of community as far as like things, you walk into a trivia night or whatever that's Harry Potter themed, and like, oh, like, you can walk up to somebody and be like, hey, what house are you in? Like you just, I don't know. It's a sense of community, a sense of belonging, so to speak, a common ground, things like that.
Man, I don't know about the most prominent lyric. I just feel like it was a thing when we were kids just because it coincided with the fact of social media or just the internet honestly being such a massive thing when we were like starting to be. So I think it really that helped. I really do. I feel like nowadays, like, yes, we have all this stuff, but like it just you don't see it to that level, and I'm not really sure why. I can't explain it. As far as like the biggest one I was a part of, obviously it's going to be Harry Potter, just because I was a kid when that was a thing. Obviously now, like, there's a bunch of books and stuff that have come out, but like it's not my whole life, I feel like, as Harry Potter was, just because, I mean, what else do you have to do? Like, I'm an adult now. Like, I've got crap to do. Like, I can't just be like all, online all day chatting with my little friends about something. Yeah, and like Michael mentioned, like, I feel like Lord of the Rings is a thing, but like we weren't born from when those books came out. Like, we were kids during the resurgence when the movies were made, and I think that really helped Lord of the Rings kind of skyrocket back into a thing. Obviously, I read the books because of the movies. Like, I didn't really know what Lord of the Rings were prior to that. As far as like personal experiences being part of that fandom, yeah, like I remember, going to midnight launches and dragging my poor mom to them because I was a kid. Like, my mom's not going to let me go by myself. And yes, I had little friends and stuff like that, but I feel like I've always been a reader outside of like anything else. That was really something I've always enjoyed. And like, yes, my friends enjoyed it, but it wasn't to like the fascination that I had. And it was really nice to finally, I feel like it kind of put reading back on the map for kids. And they showed that, like, yes, kids do enjoy reading if you let them and give them these books that let them think about stuff.
And not ban them from school libraries.
Yes, exactly. That's just a whole nother freaking conversation. But like, I remember staying up all night once I got my book to finish reading them, and my mom being so mad at me because I wouldn't sleep, and then like going online to see like what other people were talking about, because like, yes, I had friends that read Harry Potter, but like I said, they were not in the level that I was. And so I would literally go online to MuggleNet. Like, that's, I remember going out to MuggleNet and seeing the chats that everyone was talking about, and we were theorizing about what was going to happen and all these things. And it's like, I've never had that before as a kid, and it was kind of nice because, like, yes, I had friends at school who were talking about it, but like not to this extent. So then I would go home and be like, this is what my friend group at school talked about, but like, what is like the rest of the world talking about? Like, I remember like you would have discussions with these kids that were in like Europe and South America and Asian about it. It was just so fascinating to me being a part of that. As much as I hate what's happened because of the stupid author and all this stuff, like it sucks because she tainted something that was so special to me growing up as a kid, because I finally felt like I belonged somewhere with this. As far as reading impact, like I said, I always read, so it didn't change anything, but I feel like it made reading cool. So all of a sudden I was like, hey, yeah, I'm not embarrassed to say I read a lot of books, you know? Connection to the book. I mean, like I said, I feel like I've already answered that. As far, the only thing I would always, it was always unfortunate is like there's no Latin kids there, so that kind of bummed me out, because not seeing any Latin kids, like little zero, and I get it, like it's based off of like England, but like, come on, you have to have someone who like, we're everywhere.
Foreign exchange student or something at least.
Right, I don't know, like it was really, yeah.
What I think is crazy too with Harry Potter is that we haven't, and I might be wrong, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's been a book series that had the same hysteria surrounding it that the Harry Potter books did. Like,
no, I mean, there's stuff that's gotten close. Like Twilight was close, but like it wasn't so broad. I feel like that had a bit of a hysteria, but not. I don't think it was.
Twilight
So
was like
broad.
a fast burn, and I feel like it burned out a lot quicker. Like, I don't feel
Right.
like that there's a lot of adults that still identify with like the Twilight fandom like they do Harry Potter.
well, I was just thinking like the Brandon Sanderson, like his Cosmic, the Stormlight Archive series specifically. Like, there are people in the communities that I'm in that go out and get the book the day that it comes out and like try to read it or take the day off so that they can sit there and read the book. It happens, but it's not to the extent I feel like it was with Harry Potter. And even then, like, there's not midnight releases for these books. Like, these are
Right.
you have to go to the bookstore like the day it releases and get it.
Yeah, I feel like it was Harry Potter and Twilight for a little bit, because I feel like I
Mhm.
remember Twilight having a midnight release.
They
For the
did,
last
because
one.
I was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I feel like I want to say I remember that, especially because like someone grabbed one of the books and like posted a few of the chapters online, and it was like a whole thing. I remember it turning into a thing like that. I feel like that was kind of close, but like Lauren said, like it didn't last very long. It was like meteoroic. How do you say that word?
Mediocre.
Yeah. And then kind of fell, and like people make fun of the movies because let's be honest, they were not good.
No, the movies struggled.
I mean, and the books aren't great either. Like, she's not a great writer. No
I
offense.
liked the books much better than the movies, and like I
Sure.
think if I were to go back and read the books as an adult, like I don't think I would probably like it as well. And I can even look back and see themes that I'm like, yeah, that probably wasn't the best for young teenage girls to be reading
Right.
about, like model wise, but I enjoyed them at the time.
I mean,
Maybe
but I mean,
we'll
you could
see.
say the same with Harry Potter. Like, there's a lot of super problematic stuff in Harry Potter too. It's just as adults now you can see, and as a kid, obviously, when you're reading this, like you don't pick that up because it's just way over your head.
Yeah.
But, and I think that's the beauty of it. Like, you should be able to be a fan of things and still be able to critique it. Because I feel like if you have this whole like rose-colored glasses on anything, that you're not doing that book or that thing a service. Like, you should be able to critique it and still be a fan of it and not be like, oh, it's perfect, because nothing's perfect.
Right. It's obviously they're all going to have problematic things.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember like almost pretty much camping out at the West Warren in Wichita, Kansas. Those of you who know where Kansas is. To see, I don't even remember which Harry Potter movie it was at this point, but we camped for like, it was a long time. And we had to like switch out to go to the bathroom, and like we had like a little mini cooler with like our snacks in it. And I just don't think that the people that are growing up today will ever understand that, because I don't think they really do that anymore.
No, that's not a thing. I mean, I remember when the first HP movie came out, like you couldn't get tickets, they were all sold out. And our teacher, our lit teacher, English lit teacher, I don't know if she had connections with the people I don't know. Somehow she got tickets for all of her classes. She got 2 tickets, and then she was doing a little raffle, right? And my best friend and I, okay, I was in one class, she was in one class, and we're like, okay, if you win, I'll take you. If I win, I'll take you, type thing. And her class went first. She didn't win. And then we got to my class, and I won. And oh my God, it was just.
Did you cry?
Euphoric. It was an euphoric feeling of winning, and just thinking like, oh my God, like we wanted tickets so badly, we didn't get tickets. And then like I remember meeting her in the hallway and like pretending for like 2 seconds, because I'm not very good at that, like, oh, I didn't win, just kidding. And then we were like screaming, and
that's awesome.
It was amazing. But yeah, like I don't know if that's a thing anymore. Like I feel like now it's, I don't know. It was just
like
a
kids
craze.
get excited about reading anymore. Like I feel like some of them, I don't know. Like I know kids just in my teaching days, but then also, my cousin is a reader, and like she gets excited about the books that she reads. But I just don't feel like there's been any big like literary craze in the younger generations since like Twilight, because Harry Potter was first. I guess some of the Harry Potters came out after, but
I would say the Olympic one, the Percy Jackson had a thing, but it wasn't as big, or isn't as big.
No, yeah, it wasn't as big.
I also think that some of that is just the way that media is released today versus when we were kids. Like if Harry Potter happened today, you wouldn't have massive midnight releases at Barnes and Noble, because people would just download it at midnight on their Kindle or their iPad or whatever. And it's this. You could make the same comparison with other stuff. Like I remember when I was in like middle school and high school, like going with my friends to GameStop for midnight releases for a video game we were all super excited about. Whereas now you just wait until midnight, and then you can just play it on your console that already downloaded it at your house. And so there's not that same like communal gathering that you got.
Well, that's unfortunate for our children, or my children.
Maybe we'll get some hysteria around a book series again when George R. R. Martin, if George R. R. Martin ever releases The Winds of Winter. And
that man's gonna die before any books come out. That's why
if that happens, there'll be hysteria. Just because he's been working on it since like 2010, I think. Anyway, we can move on to our next question. What role does social media play in the development and sustainment of literary fandoms? How has it changed the way fans interact with each other and with authors?
I mean, I feel like social media definitely helps sustain literary fandoms. I think there's Facebook groups and funny fandom meme pages, like memes and whatever that people make. And there's podcasts that are associated with, like if you just look up on Apple Podcasts or whatever, just look up Harry Potter, and there's a ton of them, of just people discussing the books and the fandom. And then there's groups. There's like social media groups for those podcasts. So like, oh, you like Swish and Flick? There's a Swish and Flick podcast group that you can go join and like talk to each other. And they go to like Comic-Con, and the podcasters like go to these big events, and they go to Universal Studios, and they like, share their experiences there. And it's just, I think social media allows all of that to be shared and for everybody to feel more connected. Because like there were chat rooms and platforms and stuff for that, obviously, back in the day, but it's just a lot different now. It's a lot easier to access and slightly less sketchy, because you at least kind of know who you're talking to now versus back then, when there were like no pictures or anything. I'm saying kind of. I think, like if I'm going to buy something on Facebook, I can click somebody's profile and kind of know if they're fake or not, to a certain extent. But I think, yeah, the social media plays a big role in fandoms and kind of keeping them alive, I guess. And it changed the way that fans interact with each other and authors, just in the sense that, it makes it a lot easier to interact with other fans. And to like, if you join a Facebook group, you already got like thousands of people in there that are going to be of similar mindset, sort of thing, about the thing that you're trying to discuss.
So if we're just talking about like Harry Potter, I feel like one of the reasons it did so well was because, like I mentioned, it came out around the time that we as kids who were reading these books were hitting the internet, and there were websites. We were creating little websites for it, and chatting and all this stuff about it. I really don't think if like Harry Potter came out earlier or later, it would have had the same hysteria, just because it was very fortunate it came out during that time when, you know, the internet was like the wild wild west, and you could create, it was so easy to create fan pages and this, and then there's fan fiction, and like people were writing all this stuff about it. Like it just turned into this monster, and I do think it helped because of that. As far as nowadays, I think it's cool because it helps the smaller fandoms, like smaller groups and pockets of books that don't have such a huge following, and they can still connect on like Reddit forums and on book talk and stuff like that. It definitely helps that be seen, and b that you can connect with these people, because like back then you wouldn't have that. Like it's either like you're a fan of the massive thing that blew up, and you might not have a chance to talk about like the niche thing that you really like, and there's only a few people that do, but like a few people in like per state or per country and stuff, like you can meet them now and still talk about it. And I think it's cool to have, like, to give the smaller fandoms a chance to like talk and discuss things that they enjoy on these different forums. As far as interacting with other fans, same things, and same with authors. Like I know some authors aren't a fan of doing like book talks and all their, or TikToks and doing that kind of stuff, but I know like Victoria Aveyard, she is all over book talk and does stuff like that. I think it's really interesting to see them, some authors really embrace book talking, and I don't blame the ones that don't want to do that. Like sometimes you just don't, like I get it. So but I think it helps some fans interact with one another and stuff, and I think it keeps, like I said, the smaller fandoms alive.
I 100% agree with you that it does keep the small fandoms alive, because it gives people a way to interact that they maybe wouldn't have had before, outside of just like chatting on or chatting with their friends, or like-minded people that maybe they have like a book club at the library or something. But I mean, and I also agree with you, Barbara, with the whole like social media really skyrocketing in some ways Harry Potter. But I was looking it up, and Harry Potter really is like it's an anomaly. Like if you look at like the top selling books of all time, like in all of human history, like number one is Don Quixote, which came out in 1605. Then A Tale
I'm sorry,
of Two
how
Cities.
did you pronounce that?
Don Quixote?
That is not correct.
I don't even know what it is, so I would probably butcher it too.
Oh, how is it pronounced? That's how I've always heard it pronounced.
Quixote?
Mm-hmm. Don Quixote.
How do you spell it? I don't even know what this is.
It's a Q.
No, like what is the context? Oh, Don Quixote. I don't know.
Anyway, not important for this. The point I'm trying to make. That's the number one best-selling book of all time. It's had since 1605 to make those sales. Number two, Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens. That's had since 1859 to make those sales.
Terrible book, by the way.
And then you've got Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, 1997. Like that's just crazy. Like it's higher on the list than books you would think that would have surpassed it, like The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings or The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. All massively selling books that came out decades, if not like a century before. Then there's Harry Potter. So
for what it's worth, Michael, you were correct. I just listened to the pronunciation.
Thank you.
Is it? I've never heard someone pronounce it Quixote.
Quixote. Yeah. Don Quixote.
I mean, I just did Don Quixote pronunciation, and it said it pretty much exactly how.
Don Quixote, yeah.
Well, but like, is it based
I've never even heard of it,
Google?
so I had no clue.
That's the American pronunciation. Can you switch out the pronunciations to?
I mean, it just says how to pronounce. Let's see.
Yes, social media has dramatically changed that, though. Like what we were talking about before, like Discord and Reddit and all these places that are like specific Facebook groups. Lauren was saying podcasts. Like if you look up and pick a fandom and search in any podcast app, and you're going to find a whole list of not just episodes but whole shows that are based on the fandom. Like I know for a fact there's you both have talked about 2 separate Harry Potter podcasts that you guys listen to. So yeah, I mean social media and just technology in general has made a huge difference in how fans can interact with each other, and obviously the authors, because previously maybe you run into the author or you see them at a signing event or you send them a letter in the mail and hope that maybe they'll send you a letter back. And obviously some of them did, but authors, as well as really anybody, is way more accessible today than they ever have been throughout, history of famous people. And so yeah, it gives you a platform. It gives them a platform to be able to host like a Q&A with fans around the world that they maybe never would have gotten a chance to interact with in, just a few decades ago. So it's pretty wild what all it's done.
I'd like to point out that his Spanish name, and it's Quixote, like Spanish. Just pointing that out.
Don Quixote.
Quixote. It's Spanish. It is a Spanish author.
Right. I know, but it's a Spanish name.
Therefore, you should pronounce it the Spanish way.
It's the title of the book. It's not an author. The author is Miguel de
Cervantes.
Cervantes.
The author is still Spanish.
Yes, from Spain.
Okay. Well, that is what Spanish means. Yes, thank you.
Have you seen examples where a fandom has divided over a particular storyline, character development, or ending, and how does this impact the community overall?
Oh, yeah. I feel like that's the best part of being a fandom. I love that we don't agree on everything, because I feel like life would be so boring if you did, and that's where you get that fun discussion with people. As long as there's no personal attacks, you aren't name calling other people, you should be able, like I mentioned earlier, you should be able to have discourse in as long as it's a nice discourse. I don't like it when it veers off real bad. Not a fan of that. But of course, and I'll let Lauren talk about Harry Potter, but in Twilight, I remember everyone's like, what's his face is a creep watching you sleep? Yeah, that's creepy. Or right. The whole Edward versus Jacob. I was thinking of the actual guys who played in the movie, but Jacob, that was a whole thing. The Divergent kind of had a fandom, and then the final book came out, and that's a great one. No one liked the ending. It was a terrible ending. You terrible. Love to hate those, but no one talks about it anymore because how terrible that ending was. Oh yeah, there's a bunch. In Lord of the Rings, I know people were discussing certain characters, especially there's not a lot of women characters in the book and all this other. Yes, I think it's cool. Like I said,
the hill some people will die on about how Legolas isn't a character.
What? Is that a thing?
Yeah, he was invented for the movie.
Legolas was in the books. What are you talking about?
I didn't read the books. I have no.
He wasn't in the Hobbit, if that's what you mean. He wasn't in the Hobbit. He's in the books, dude. What the hell are you talking about? In the Hobbit, he wasn't, but he was in the movie Hobbit. And
that's what I'm talking about. Is in the Hobbit. They added him.
You didn't. You said Lord of the Rings. Hobbit is completely different than
Sorry, they added him to the Hobbit. He was
they
not
did
in the
movies. They added Legolas to the movie. He's not. But I mean, the book is super short, so there was no reason for them to make that into a freaking 3-parter. But I digress. That's a whole nother freaking issue that we're having. But yeah, no, I think it's amazing when we talk about this stuff, because I think it's cool, that you should have disagreements, and you should have, because everyone's reading a book how they see it. And I wholeheartedly believe, especially I love when the authors say this, it's their book until they put it out in the world, and then now it's the fans, how they interpret it, how they see it. It's up to us to see that. And as long as you're being polite and not just blatantly attacking someone for no reason, I love to see that kind of discord. I think it's really funny, actually.
I mean, I agree. I think that there's a line, and there's some that go way past it, but I think that generally disagreements on things can provide, in any situation, stimulating conversation with someone else that has a differing viewpoint than you, and provide alternate perspectives. I find that in a lot of fandoms, and this is both books and movies and other things, that a lot of the people that argue, a lot of the arguments, at least online, that I see are about who they ship characters with. And
yes,
no, that can't be with this person. They're supposed to be with this person. You're wrong. And it's
there's whole fan fictions written of the.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. If you didn't enjoy the person that they ended up with, you can just ship someone else on fan sites. Love that for us.
But as far as me personally, I don't have any examples that I've seen in book fandoms where they disagree, because the first thing that comes to mind when I read this question was Star Wars. The
That
big
doesn't count.
divides
That
in
didn't
that
start
fandom.
as a book.
I know, it doesn't count because it's not a book, or it wasn't originally a book. And so I've never seen this in the literary fandoms.
I mean,
that,
you did in Harry Potter when you were growing up. Like, your sister's gonna mention it, but like that was the whole discussion for a long time. Like, is Snape evil? Is not Gandalf? Is Dumbledore
Yeah.
such a great character? I was like, no, they're all trash.
How dare
That's true.
you.
I mean, arguing about like those plot points and like how, like, are you talking like making like predictions? So, like, one person thinks Snape is evil, or are you talking at the end of the story?
It's just that at the end, like, you can still, like, people are like, oh, he was a great man. Yeah, but he still bullied like 13-year-olds. Like, that's not a good look for anyone. I don't care what you did after the fact. Like, but like I said, I want to leave all that to your sister, and we'll
Lauren,
get
go
into
ahead.
that. But like, yeah.
No, I think, I mean, fandoms are definitely divided over storylines and relationships and character developments and endings and all the things. And I think the impact that it has on the fandom communities is really just banter. And I think as long as people are civil and they're not like, you're just like name calling because you have like think one way or think another way. I think as long as you're like, well, agree to disagree sort of situation, then it can be entertaining. Obviously, in Harry Potter, the bigger divisions that I guess I think of are with Snape's character. There are either like there's a whole camp of people that like love Snape, and then there's a whole camp of people that hate Snape, and there's not really a lot of in between. And having been the person that like hated Snape all throughout the novels and then like realized, oh, actually he probably had some redeeming qualities. Now I don't think that I would name my child after him like Harry does.
This is a great example. What is a redeeming quality that he had? I'm just dying to know.
He ended up making some choices that were, I felt, redeeming. Now, when I say redeeming quality, that doesn't cancel all of the shittiness of the rest of him, but it makes him less shitty in the end.
I don't know, man. Okay, so he had
He's still a bully.
one-sided relationship with a woman. Toxic, mind you. He was awful, regardless of anything. Like I mentioned, he was awful to children. There is zero excuse for that. As a teacher, that is not okay. Like, zero. I don't care what you're doing on your days off. You are a teacher. You should not be bullying 13, 11, 12-year-olds. I'm sorry. If you get off on that, there's something wrong with you, Mr.
Unpopular opinion, Harry deserved it.
Wow, Michael.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, but if you think about it, there were times throughout the novels where he did save Harry's life and Harry otherwise would have been dead and we wouldn't have the rest of the books.
I mean, it was the first one.
Yep. So if we would have allowed Quirrell to murder Harry like he wanted to in the first book, we hadn't had Snape
Harry's
step in.
The chosen one. This never would have happened.
I know.
For plot reasons.
I'm just saying. This is a perfect example, you guys.
I know, exactly.
I am not by any means, just for clarity, saying that Snape is a good guy. I do not think he is a good guy. I think the bullying of the kids.
Apologist, isn't that what
he has a lot of like problematic qualities, and overall I think he's really just kind of a dick. But there were aspects that we learn about him, especially like, okay, he's got some trauma. Okay, he's got like this. So where I can empathize with some of that, not that it excuses his behavior, it doesn't, but I can empathize with it. And there were some things, some decisions that he made along the way that were more selfless and I think redeemed some of the hate that I had for him. But I still don't think he's a good guy. So there was him, and then there was like Dumbledore. Like everybody's like, oh, we all love Dumbledore, but then if you really look back at it, it's like
gaslighting. At the finest.
He silent treatmented Harry for like a whole book. Yeah. And it's like when Harry needed him the most, he was like, nah, son, like you're on your own.
Deuce, I'm dying.
And like looking back, obviously you can see that, okay, he was separating because he knew that he was not gonna be around anymore, and he needed Harry to be able to like function on his own. And so I can see why they did what they did, but I still don't think he's just a completely like, woo, we all love Dumbledore sort of thing.
Right.
Also, he was super biased, like, oh, you know, 20 million points to Gryffindor because you finished your pumpkin pasty. Like,
I was going to say, Slytherins have a real reason to hate Dumbledore.
Yes, they probably do. He was very biased, but so those are just some examples of obviously like fandoms being divided on characters. I think, shipping wise, I just still truly feel like Harry and Hermione would have been a better pairing.
I agree.
Harry and Ginny, I liked book Ginny way better than I liked movie Ginny.
That's not even a discussion. And it's not even the actress's fault. That's just bad, piss poor writing on their part, removing everything that made her really cool.
Because she was a really cool character, and then they just like made her very flat in the movies.
Yeah.
But
and they did the same thing to Ron too. Like all his great lines in the books, they gave to Hermione in the movies.
They did.
Like they really did. I'm just like, what is happening right now? Like,
poor Ron. I love Ron.
Poor Ronald.
But I just feel like chemistry wise, Harry and Hermione should have ended up together. And Ron was right to be having all of the worries about Harry and Hermione together because honestly, they just made more sense in my mind. But.
And scene. That was a great example that you guys read from a script that we wrote ahead of time about a disagreement in a fandom.
What? Yes, it did play out fairly well. Some people think Draco and Harry end up together.
That's a whole thing. Like, if you're deep in fan fiction, man, let me tell you, you got some interesting combinations. I mean, everyone shipped Draco and Hermione.
And they actually they had chemistry in the IRL.
Yeah, in the movies.
But the actor and actress had they like
right. That's what I'm saying. Like the actors in the movies had palpable chemistry and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, as much as Harry and Draco hated each other, one of my favorite ships of the books were Sirius and what's your guys' favorite dude? The wolf, Lupin.
Lupin, I love
Lupin.
Yes,
I love that. The little ship that came out of that.
Love me some Lupin.
And with that, we have reached the end of another bonus episode.
Okay, well, I just like to preface this that we completely forgot about Hunger Games, and I'm extremely disappointed in myself because I was in the trenches with the Hunger Games. I think the only issue is I wasn't that old, but I was a bit older when the Hunger Games came out. I feel like I wasn't. Were we like starting middle school? Not middle school.
When the books came out.
Yeah, when the books came out, like middle school or something like that. And I think the same thing was like it didn't really hit like crazy fandom until I feel like
actually,
the movies
it would have been
came out.
College for you, Barbara, because the Hunger Games came out. Yeah, the first book came out my senior year of high school.
When did it come out?
2008.
Oh shoot. Okay, well, JK. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, we were older for Hunger Games.
I was older, and so it's not like that crazy, like, fanatic. Like, I actually had to like start, thinking about the future and not just staying up late and reading books. Oh, the good old days. Anywho, have feedback about today's episode? You can contact us by writing to badassliteraturesociety@gmail.com. You can also send us a DM or leave a comment on Instagram or Facebook.
Make sure you're following Badass Literature for free in your favorite podcast app. Give us a rating and leave us a review if they allow you to. Super helpful for us. Helps our show get noticed by more people and also gives us feedback that we can change things in the show. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. Our username on both Facebook and Instagram is @BadassLitPod. And with that, I'm Michael.
This is Barbara.
And I'm Lauren. Bye.
Bye. Nom Nom is fresh dog food made by real people who really care. They're purposeful and enthusiastic about giving your dog the best food for them and their health, so they can thrive and be their best. Nom Nom delivers fresh food made with whole ingredients backed by veterinary science. And science tells us that dog health starts in the bowl, so improving their diet is one of the best ways to help them live a long, happy life. All you have to do is order, pour, and serve. Barbara and I have 2 dogs, Luna, a husky, and Quinny, a Shih Tzu mix. Our 2 dogs love the beef mash recipe, but to be honest, I'd say Quinny's favorite is the turkey fare. She drools when that comes out of the fridge. Yes, I know, Luna. I'm going to tell them about that right now.
Luna is an extremely picky eater and always has been. She usually takes forever to warm up to new food, but not with Nom Nom. She dove in immediately. Both dogs seemed to have more energy, and Luna's stools were no longer soft. Your dog's health starts in the gut. A better diet means softer coats, more energy, better breath, and smaller, more consistent stools. Your dog can't tell you if they're healthy, but you can tell when their health improves. It's the easiest way to take the guesswork out of feeding your dog the best. Nom Nom meals are pre-portioned for your dog's exact caloric needs. Board-certified vet nutritionists are kind of a big deal, and Nom Nom has 2 on staff that work extensively to ensure everything gets sent out is the very best for your dog's livelihood. So how does Nom Nom work? You tell them about your pup, age, breed, weight, allergies, and protein preferences. Then they tailor a specific amount of individually packaged Nom Nom meals and send them straight to you. Store the meals in the freezer or fridge until it's mealtime. They'll give you specific instructions on how to transition your dog from foods like kibble to always fresh Nom Nom for best results. Watch your dog clean their dishes, dance for dinner, and overall thrive. Ready to make the switch to fresh? Order Nom Nom today. Go to a link in the description of this episode and then use our referral code BADASSLIT. That's BADASSLIT and get 50% off your first order plus free shipping. Plus, Nom Nom comes with a money-back guarantee. If your dog's tail isn't wagging within 30 days, Nom Nom will refund your first order. No fillers, no nonsense, just Nom Nom.